Hey guys, how are you guys doing? Um, I wish I could see you guys, but it is nice here in Dallas. Before I talk about what's going on, um, let me go ahead and get some confirmation here. Can you hear me? If you can hear me, please type yes in the chat box for me. Awesome. Yay, good. Looks like you can hear me. Okay, so a couple of housekeeping tips for this particular live stream. There is a little bit of a delay, even with really good internet. There's a little bit of delay between what I say and then when you hear it. And there's a delay between what you type and what I read. So I will say something and a minute later is when you will hear it. Is exaggeration. Maybe it's a little bit less. So I'm on the hotel Wi-Fi, as is everyone else who is at the hotel. So what I want you to keep that in mind. So if we get disconnected for any reason and I'm not able to come back on, this entire lesson is in step 2. Um, this 2, and it's a PowerPoint with my voiceover. So you'll still get that. Also, a couple of you are like logged into other people's accounts, and don't understand why YouTube makes people create accounts for this. Usually you don't have to, but it is what it is. But I'm glad you're here. The activity that we are doing today, you actually have to do by the end of your set class time. This class is set to end at 3:20. So I'm going to go through the lesson. We'll do like a back and forth, and then you're on your own to do the discussion post. That's in step 1. That discussion post closes. Ooh, excuse me. Sorry. Closes at 3:20 when the class ends. So you have until 3:20 to do the discussion post, and that's how I'm taking roll. Okay? So if you understand this, please type yes in the box, and we will get started. Awesome. Cool. Let's get started here. So what I'm going to do is do a screen share. The good Lord willing, we'll do a screen share. And I will show you my screen. All right, let's get started here. Okay, let's get started. Let me go for the beginning. So this particular presentation is about social issues. And I kind of have a feeling that some of you are probably cheering for joy because we're finally getting down to the meat of this class. We started our semester with learning what an argument is. We started learning that authors make arguments in things like nonfiction essays, in comic books or graphic novels, in short stories, and in poetry. We learned the process, the rhetorical situation, which you will continue to be using for the rest of the semester as well. But now it should be like nearly second nature. Whenever you see something that you need to break down and understand what the argument is, that's your first go-to. You go to the rhetorical situation and use that, and you go through that process. we've learned some things to add to our toolbox, like elements of argument, the elements of fiction, poetry, and the elements of design. We've learned also goal, motivation, conflict. So we have all these tools, all these things that help us get at the argument. Now what we're adding here is social issues. What the author is saying about the social issue in the piece that we are reading. So we are actually going to be reading new pieces. So the Birmingham Jail Letter and Harrison Bergeron and Monstrous and Capital Punishment. We're going to set those to the side for now. We're done with those for now, and we're going to move on to new stories. So you're going to read brand new stories and brand new social issues are going to pop up, okay? So for this particular lesson, you're going to need pen and paper for notes. As always, a copy of the stories and essays that we read so far, just for reference. You don't really need them, but if you wanted to like look at it as I'm talking about things, that's always an option. You're going to need your notes from the past couple of lessons because you may want to return or recall some things. And I want you to keep an open mind because we are learning some skills that that you haven't learned, but that you're definitely capable of learning and using. So this is what you're going to learn in this lesson. You're going to learn what a social issue is, some examples of social issues, how that plays in literature, how writers use social issues in literature, and how that becomes the argument. You'll know what the actual definition of a social issue is, which not everybody knows. So, our writing quote for this lesson comes from writer Linda Sue Park. And this is a really great quote. She says, "I do think that part of literature's job is to comment on and participate in the social issues of the time." And what she's really talking about is that authors actually have conversations with what's going on in their lifetime. For example, Charles Dickens would probably not write Great Expectations in the same way during our time that he did during Victorian times, right? He is a man of his time, so he writes about the issues of his time, as do authors of this time, which means context is always, as always, it's very, very important. Context is everything, yeah? So let's look at a couple of definitions that's going to help. Varies. Everyone's got an opinion of what social issues are and whatnot. So I'm going to give you the actual definition. Here goes. Social issue is a problem that influences a considerable amount of people. It doesn't just influence one person or impacts one person or just one street in a neighborhood. We're talking a large group of people, the majority of the people in the neighborhood, or the majority of people on one side of town, or a section of society. That's what a social issue is. It's often the consequence of factors extending beyond the control of the individual, right? So for the rest of the class, the second half of the class, we're going to be focusing about it through literary work and how it reflects the social issue or the world issue. And if you hear any like banging, by the way, I think maintenance is working on something next door. And the wind is howling outside the window. So if you hear something other than my voice, it's because that's what's going on in the background, FYI. Okay, so we're focusing on social issues in literary work. And we're also seeing how these issues impact an individual's way of life. And the way that these issues impact an individual's life is called social problems. See how that kind of fits into social issue a little bit? Everyone is impacted by social issues in one way or another. It's either positive or negative, but there's always an impact in some way, shape, or form. So don't say, oh, because this doesn't impact me in a bad way, doesn't mean that you aren't impacted. You are always impacted, okay? Yay. Okay, so here's an example, a good visual of some social issues here. I like this visual because you get a good sense of some issues that you probably didn't think about, like economic fluctuations. That's a thing. Malnutrition, shortened lifespans, social disorder is another social issue. Um, uh, you get economic joblessness, poverty as social issues here. This list right here that I am showing you is a larger list and a more comprehensive list, but not the big list of all social issues. There is no big list of social issues. I kind of feel like it's a never-ending list. We just keep adding to it, not really solving anything, but that's neither here nor there. So there's a couple of social issues here, and this is something that I put together literally as I was putting this presentation together, I think last semester. Looked at the news and said, all right, what social issues are playing in the news right now? And made a list. So a couple of them, like gender equality, there's subcategories under those bigger categories. So gender equality is like a big category of a social issue. But under that, you have sexism and male privilege and feminism. You also have patriarchy in this as well, and that all goes under gender equality. Under environment, you have things like climate change and deforestation and fracking. Civil rights is a huge issue as well. And again, some of these overlap. So you have racial inequality, racism, prejudice, discrimination, Black Lives Matter, police brutality, all lives matter also under civil rights. LGBTQ rights, marriage, bathroom laws, etc. Those are all civil rights as well. You have terrorism, which is, public safety and politics and discrimination go under terrorism. And the list continues and continues and continues. So lots of social issues out there. And some of the reading that we will be doing for the rest of the semester actually plays plays the wrong word, discusses these issues you have in front of you. Let's talk about generic versus specific, because sometimes when people talk about social issues, they think they know what the social issue is, but they've never really had to define it or look it up. Or maybe they have, but didn't really understand. And one of them is racism, discrimination, and prejudice. Being prejudiced, I should say. Prejudice is not a word. But racism, discrimination, and prejudice, being prejudiced. Those are some things that people say, hey, that's racism. Are you sure it's racism? Because that kind of feels to me. Or are you sure that's discrimination? Because that feels like racism. So knowing what differences are, and understanding that there's differences, not just in these particular social issues, but in all social issues, allows you to identify and be more specific with the social issues that are happening in the stories that we are reading. Homelessness, poverty, mental issues, access to medical services. Sometimes in a piece that you are trying to understand the social issue, maybe there's more than one social issue, and that is perfectly fine. The adage is, 100 people or 99 people can see one thing, and that one other person can see something completely different. Think of a couple of years ago where people were talking about that infamous dress. Was it blue or was it white and gold or whatever that the color were? Okay. Don't go by how public discourse is defining these social issues, because public discourse is one thing. We are trying to be better than that. We are trying to have facts and evidence to make decisions, or to make understand the arguments in these pieces. So don't just say, I know what feminism is because everybody keeps talking about it in the news. Do you really know what feminism is? You should probably look it up. I know what patriarchy is because everybody keeps talking about it. Do you know what patriarchy is? You should probably look it up. So it's stuff like that that you want to look up and make sure that it's okay. So this is my disclaimer here. This is not a sociology class, and I am not a sociology professor at all. So this is as far as I go into sociology. Really what I'm interested in is looking at social issues in regards to the pieces that we are reading. So we have a job, and the job is to ask the big questions of the pieces that we are reading and attempt to answer them, knowing that the answers are not going to come easy. Their answers are there, but they won't be easy. So if you're struggling to find the social issues to some things and what the argument of the social issue is for peace, then you're doing it right. Okay. So right now I'm going to stop the screen sharing here. I'm going to check in on you guys. How are you guys doing? Are you understanding things so far? Do you have any questions? So I'm just going to stop screen sharing. Hi. And look at the chat box here. If you have any questions, go ahead and type in the question in the chat box. If you don't, just go ahead and say, I don't have any questions. Thank you, Professor, for being so awesome. Okay. And I will drink some coffee as I wait here. Thank you, Christopher. I think I messed up a nail and I'm really upset about it. Are you hearing an echo? Windfisher. Who's Windfisher? Who are you? No questions. Thank you to make an account. You should have been able to click and go. But alas, Google. No questions. All right, everyone looks like they're good. If you do hear an echo, I apologize again. Like there's things going around, happening around me and outside. I think somebody was knocking on the door earlier, and I'm like, no, I'm teaching, so I'm not answering the door. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and continue the screen sharing, and we'll go to the next part of the lesson. All right. The courage paper for me, the Dropbox is closed. Ricardo, the Dropbox shouldn't be closed. If you're having problems with the courage paper, so let me just address this right now. If you're having problems with the courage paper, I don't know what's going on with D2L right now. Like you, Ricardo, you're not the only one that's having, lots of people having issues, and I think there's some bug or something going on D2L, because on my end, all the links are active. I literally looked on the student view and clicked on everything. All the links are live, but some students can't get to it. So what I'm gonna say is don't go through the module, go the long way around. So there's a menu on the top along the top part of, or kind of the top part of D2L, and it says, it'll say assessments. Click on assessments and then click on Dropbox and dump it in there. Go through that way to go to the courage paper to make sure that it's in there. And we'll take it from there. It's not Jennifer. I forgot who was Jennifer, but Jennifer Lopez. Are we purposely not able to view the courage paper prompt anymore? You should still be able to see the courage paper prompt, but that's what I was talking about. There's some sort of bug or something going on with the courage the courage paper. All the links on my end are working, and I even went back today and relinked everything just in case there was some on this week. There were actual links that were there, were broken, and I had to put them on. And then the next day they were broken again, and I put them back in. So there's something going on with D2L. I'm not quite sure. I'm gonna put a ticket in, but go the long way around to turn in your courage paper. Don't go through the module. Go to assessments in the menu bar on top. It's kind of not really on top. It's like right under the header. Go to assessments and then hit Dropbox and then go to courage paper. Okay. Yes, but you can still participate, and welcome Nicholas. Okay. So I hope that works out. Let me go ahead and do the screen share, and we'll share the second half of the lesson because I want to give you time for you guys to do your activity today. Okay. So let's go here. If you would see on my end, the immense amount of no,